If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you. All right. Last show of the year. This is a pre-recorded guest show. Vic, tell us a little bit about who you have on the show today.
Yeah. So we have Joel Portice. I think he's done 5 or 6 successful startups.
Wow.
So he's like a success, always around data in healthcare.
Okay.
And his current project spun out of Edwards Life Sciences. It's on the series. It's my Heart Health series.
Oh, okay.
Because he has a kind of a really large database of heart data from maybe 100 hospitals.
Okay.
And so we go through how the company spun out of Edwards and what he's building. It's really impressive. He's saving lives and saving money. It's really good. So Joel Portice, company's called Ignite, and the product is CardioCare.
Awesome. Let's listen to the show with you and Joel.
Yeah. Okay, welcome everyone to Health Further. We're continuing the discussion of heart health innovations. Today, I'm excited to have Joel Portice. Joel is the president and CEO of Ignite. Joel, thanks for doing this with me. Excited about it.
Vic, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we have spent a few months getting to know each other, but the audience may not know your background that well. So maybe you've had quite a bit of experience in healthcare broadly, and particularly data and analytics. Maybe talk about your background broadly, just to introduce the audience to you.
You bet. Well, thank you for that opportunity. So I will tell you, I have been in the healthcare data and technology space for over 25 years, pretty much by accident. But I got into this after graduate school when I saw an opportunity to use data and software to solve what I saw as a problem on the payer side, on the healthcare payer side. Launched a company about 6 months after grad school, basically using that information and those capabilities to try to solve some problems. And that company was acquired by UnitedHealth Group about 6 years later.
And are we talking in the 90s or early 2000s? What's the rough time frame?
We are talking the late 90s. So,
okay, yeah.
So the company was acquired in 1998.
Okay, yeah.
And so from there, then, at United, it was, so I would look at the United experience as really transformational for me because I had not been part of a big company before. And I had a 3-year earnout as part of my deal. Yep. It was my first earnout. It was my last earnout. And I'm really glad I did it, but I'll never do another one.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did it because, again, as I said, I kind of accidentally got into this. But what I discovered there was, one, I met some amazingly smart people who I'm still friends with today.
At the UHG headquarters.
That was at the UHG headquarters. Before Optum, there was Ingenix.
Yep.
And before Ingenix, there was this little area called Applied Healthcare Informatics. Oh, and they were just transitioning from Applied Healthcare Informatics into Ingenix. So I was one of the original guys, one of the original people during that transition to Ingenix.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that UnitedHealth Group and that team were really rethinking how data could be used, should be used, might be used to help patients and manage their cost of care better?
100%. So they had at the time, again, this is in the late 90s, they had divested from their PBM. The CEO at the time, Bill McGuire, was looking to roll up some different informatics companies to create this informatics piece that eventually became, this large entity of Optum. And they 100% were looking at how do we use data, how do we use advanced analytics, high math in order to try to solve problems. And when I say it was my first earnout, my last earnout, and I'll never do another one, but I'm glad I did that one, was because while I was there, I got to meet great people, smart people, had access to more data than anything else I had seen. And it was also along those lines and in that area where I saw what I thought were more problems. And in this particular case, it was the inconsistency, the unavailability of provider information. And so we then, after a period of time and after we left, launched a second company called Inclarity, in which we became the single source of truth of provider information. And the whole idea was to be able to create this repository using analytics and software from the marketing side, where they could predict people's buying patterns and things like that, in order to predict the accuracy of provider information so that we could use that to populate into integrate into workflow systems and operating systems to make sure that claims were paid properly, that provider information was accurate, that web directories back in that day were they contained accurate information for patients. And so,
yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but one of the assets that a payer has is their network of physicians and the contract pricing. That's one of the core things.
right,
And if they don't keep up with, I mean, there's a lot of changes in the physician network.
that's
So you
right.
keep up with those changes day to day, month to month, and that's what Inclarity was really good at. Is that
It was extremely good at it. The data was real time updated. It was verified, phone verified when needed. But we tried to rely mostly on technology and data and probability scoring and ranking that we had. Eventually, 8 years later, we sold that company to LexisNexis. But what those two experiences really taught me was that using data and software to solve big problems in healthcare was something that I wanted to continue to do. And so it really has, as I said, it built my career over the last 25 years of using software, using data, surrounding the organization with really smart people, committed people, in order to solve some of these big problems in healthcare, because our system is very dysfunctional, and you see it, you hear it. We've all experienced it. The fragmentation, the ability for sick patients to fall through the cracks and kind of get lost in the system. And so, really from that first start with Integrity Plus to the second company with Inclarity, and then on through some of my other ventures, it's really all been about how do we solve some of these problems by using data and the technology to support the clinicians. Let the clinical experts be the experts. What we want to provide them are with tools and data that will help them make the best decisions to provide the best outcomes for those patients.
yeah, yeah, excellent. So, Joel, I have this saying, I stole it from a woman that I used to work with. If you have one success in healthcare, you could be lucky. Two in a row, and you're clearly good. Three, and you're a legend. You've had five successful data companies. One you were on the board of, but
Yep.
four you were in the leadership team or the co-founder.
Yep.
What lessons or success factors, or is there a rough formula? How do you think about approaching a data company to have this? Is there anything to take away that others could benefit from around this?
Yeah, I think my themes, and they're all related to those five examples that you just mentioned. The theme is, one, we've always stayed very focused, right? We don't try to be all things to all people. And I've stepped over, as we all have, the carcasses of companies that really tried, they had grand strategies, but were not very good at executing. And perhaps they were too broad, perhaps their strategy was too wide, not grounded in data. And what we have always done is stayed very focused on 3 to 5 problems, 3 to 5 things that we're going to be better at than anybody else. And the smaller the company, the smaller that number. At Verisk Health, for example, we provided a broad set of solutions, but that was because we actually rolled up 9 different healthcare assets, and we inherited these things. These were 9 different companies that were competing against each other in certain areas. And the leadership at Verisk Analytics, the public company, said we need to bring these things together, and we did that, and had significant, really tremendous organic growth over a 5-year period. But we stayed very focused on what we were great at, and we quickly made ruthless decisions on those things that we were not good at, and we killed those. And then I think the other theme, Vic, is that it's really all about the people. And so in my case, I have been very fortunate to have certain individuals work with me through 3-4 different companies, and to be able to be surrounded by a team, both at the leadership level, at the technology level, at the operational level, at the marketing level, that's very strong. And I believe I believe culture is a very important piece. And I believe, part of my job as the CEO of these organizations, as the founder of these organizations, is to really create a cohesive strategy, a cohesive leadership team, and drive that type of cohesion across the entire organization with clarity into what it is we're about and how we're going to go about executing our plans.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage to get the band back together, where how these people, their strengths, where they maybe need help, and you can save a ton of time as you do another adventure.
Well, everybody in those situations, particularly the very good people, they understand the nuances, they understand the idiosyncrasies of individuals that they've been working with. We're not all best friends, but we're very close. Yeah. And you get close when you go through the trenches that some of us have gone through together. And it really does help, because the learning curve is pretty much eliminated on day one. We all get it. We know who's strong at what. And then my job is to really kind of be the conductor and make sure that we're moving and we're advancing the things that we need to advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so your most recent company you're involved right now, Ignite, is really focused on cardiac disease.
Yep.
You have a pretty audacious vision for the company, but I want you to describe the vision for Ignite and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So Ignite was a operating business unit inside of Edwards Life Sciences. Mm-hmm. And the leadership team at Edwards approached me during COVID and said, we've got this asset. We think maybe we should spin it out and set it up as a separate company. Would you take a look at it? And I did. And my view of it was, this is a digital health company. And you can imagine, you're part of this $50 billion massive innovative device company that not only is involved in the development of certain devices, but also in the innovation and the science around those things. And so it's a very,
and manufacturing to hugely specific specifications. I mean,
exactly,
very complex manufacturing.
It's a very sophisticated, savvy company. And I've been extremely impressed with the folks that I've worked with there. And so during COVID, we looked at it and I said, look, I think this is a digital health company. Because imagine this business unit is fighting for operating expenditures and innovation expenditures and everything else among every other business unit. And so their theory was, if we spun it out, I bet it could be very successful by itself. And so I looked at it and I said, there's 3 things that have to happen. I mean, they were looking at one specific valve, and it made sense because they were the leader in that particular valve. And I said, my view was, you need to move to all pathologies of structural heart, but you also have to expand to the electrophysiology side. So really think about a patient detection, patient management capability that is looking across the full continuum of cardiovascular. And that means that you're going to identify patients that you're going to elevate for some form of therapy that might benefit your competitor.
Right. Edwards may not have the leading solution in that space.
And to their credit,
it may not affect the Edwards stock price.
that's right. And to their credit, they were, yes, that's okay. It's good for the patient. And I said, the second thing we need to do is they were using a proprietary NLP, natural language processing technology, to read echocardiograms. And my view was we needed to collect all types of data. We need to gather much more data than just that. And so we came up with a whole data governance, data collection, data management strategy, us becoming a data-centric digital health company. And they said, we agree with that part. And then I said, the third piece was, we're going to create a two-sided network in which we're going to work with industry. And by industry, we define that as device companies and pharma companies. And you got to be okay in this case, because now we're actually creating commercial relationships with your competitors.
Right.
And to their credit, they were, yes, we understand that strategy and that vision. And again, it's about the patient. And so they were a great partner. And then, of course, the final piece was, we got to be autonomous. We need to be able to set this up as an autonomous, separate entity. And they were very supportive. They're represented on our board of directors. And I remind them, we've grown probably 10x since we spun out in Q1 of 2021. And I remind them that their thesis was right. That by spinning this thing out, letting us become entrepreneurial, opportunistic, and really execute on the 3 to 5 things that we believe will impact cardiovascular patient identification, patient management, is going to be good, not only for Ignite as a business, but also for the patients that we impact. And they've been extremely supportive. So we did create this very audacious goal of identifying all cardiovascular patients in America. And that's very specific for a reason, is that we're not international. Could we be? Yes. But right now, my focus is really on the US population, because I think there's such a huge opportunity. I have become converted in that I believe cardiovascular disease in general is a preventable death. Mm-hmm. And if we can get these folks who have this disease, who are walking around, Vic, and you'd be shocked at the amount of people that have severe or moderate cardiovascular disease, structural heart disease specifically, and don't even know it. They're walking around with a death sentence. And what we believe we can do is identify them, elevate them. We have nothing to do with the therapy selection. That is all up to the clinicians. Our job, we stop at the last mile. We have purposely become Switzerland. We stop at the last mile to elevate the patient and engage with them to try to activate their therapy. But we have nothing to do with whatever therapy that physician chooses.
Okay, let me rephrase, make sure I'm following, and then I have a question. So is it fair to say that the origin story of Cardio Care, which is the product name inside Ignite,
that's right.
It started life really as a way for Edwards Lifesciences to highlight patients that could benefit from their specific valve replacement device or treatment therapy. And they saw an opportunity to expand it. You did as well. And so it spun out, and now it has this mandate to work with all types of structural heart disease and the electrical physical side of heart disease, and work with, I think, the two sides. This is where I have a confusion. The two sides, are they health systems providers, and the other side, pharma and devices? Or
that's right. No, that's it. Right. That's it. So one side it's the hospitals. So today, they're on a nightly basis. About 400 hospitals are contributing data into our data contribution model that we can use for our strengthening our models, research, for publications. We've had a number of publications and our thought leaders on our medical advisory board and other physicians that we've worked with, who have been the authors of these publications because of the research capabilities that we have with that data. And so that's with the hospitals. And then the other side, it's the industry. And we define industry in our case as the medical device companies, and the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. Okay. So every night, 50, 70, 100 hospitals contribute data to your ongoing
400.
400?
400.
400. Okay. So every night, any echoes they have done, or is it all the patients that have any heart disease get pulled in? How does the data get pulled in?
Yeah, the data gets pulled in. It doesn't have to be heart disease. And so this was the other piece, right? You talked about focus.
Yeah, because that was a
talked about-
surprising thing out of one of the, we'll get to your papers in a minute, but
Yeah.
a lot of people are not aware that they're poor perceivers that they have heart disease. So they're not necessarily reporting in as heart patients.
Right. That's right. They might not know it. And that's the other. So we talked about the audacious goal and how I was specific that it's all cardiovascular patients in the U.S. Right. We're focused domestically for now. We certainly talk about what the international expansion would look like, and we've been approached by organizations that have international footprints in order to do that. Right now, it's not on my radar. It's on our plan, but we're focused on the domestic side. And then the other piece is it's cardiovascular. So we get 2 billion records a night. The amount of data we get is incredible. And what we're doing though is we're still focusing on cardiovascular. For us to adjacently expand into other areas and other disease states is absolutely something we think about, we talk about, but it's not where we are now. Right now, it's let's solve this problem in cardiovascular. Right. Let's help identify those patients that have moderate to severe structural heart disease and get them engaged so that we can get them care.
Well, the really interesting thing, one, it's a plenty big enough market, right? Like U.S. cardiovascular patient market is huge in itself.
Yep.
Two, it's pretty exciting because if you find a patient, we have treatment options for them as an industry. And so we can bring them improvement. We might bring them cure. They might die of something else besides heart disease. The faster we catch them, the earlier we catch them, the better.
Right. To that point, Vic, every day, I could find patients, multiple patients that we have been a part of them having a life-saving therapy because they were identified by our software. Yeah. It happens every day across this country.
Yeah. Every day you are pulling in a patient who would have been not seen otherwise.
Yeah.
And their life is saved. And we need to get it out to more hospitals and more patients because every day there are people that are still not seen today.
That's
that
right.
are not in the Ignite system and need to be.
That's right. And what we know, Vic, is that because of the fragmented system we have, that if there's not a follow-up on somebody within 90 days, there is a very high likelihood that individual is just going to kind of fall through the cracks, be forgotten about, and then they'll be dead within 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's serious, it's real, and our team gets pretty excited about the fact that we know and we can identify, we can point to an individual whose life was saved because our software identified them.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the business model just for a minute, because there are a lot of health system leaders that are listening. Do the health systems have to pay for this? Who pays? I mean, certainly they'll benefit from more and higher acuity patients coming in. Mm-hmm. I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to talk through it so that people listening can understand.
Yeah. So
how does it work financially?
Yeah. So our hospitals pay us a subscription model, or it's a subscription model. Our hospitals pay us an annual subscription.
Okay.
And in exchange for that subscription, we provide them this very elegant dashboard that is updated on a nightly basis that helps them identify in a very efficient and effective way those individuals that are in their system that have moderate or severe structural heart disease or some form of heart failure, atrial fibrillation. We identify that very quickly. The industry pays us a subscription And that is for us curating a relationship with the hospital to help accelerate the population, accelerate the enrollment of clinical trials.
Mhm.
So if a industry partner is looking to do a trial,
You have a
one
new
of our
device
hospital,
or a new
a
use
new
case.
medication, whatever, and we have a relationship with that hospital, we can help bring that two together. They pay us a subscription. And what we do is we use our technology, we use our software, we codify what the inclusion exclusion criteria would look like for a certain patient, and we create a subset of that. And then there is, of course, the process of qualifying those patients, consenting those patients, and then ultimately enrolling those patients. And so the industry pays us for that. And the industry also pays us if they have a device that has come to market, we can help them accelerate commercial adoption with the relationships that we have with our
Yeah.
provider customers.
Yeah. And then this weekend I was listening to another podcast you did, and I think it was around valve replacement, but in one specific intervention, kind of the macro level growth rate was 6%, but your clients were seeing a much higher growth rate because they were seeing the patients that were most in need of some kind
That's
of
right.
intervention.
That's right.
But untangle my incorrect facts. Like so, but they pay a small amount, but then they get higher acuity and more procedures.
Well, and it's a more efficient use and a more effective use of their lab time. So, our clinician customers will tell us that they used to look at 15 patients and maybe provided therapy to 3 of them. With the precision of our identification and our management tools, they'll look at 15 and they can provide a therapy on 12 to 13 of those.
Yeah.
So it's a better use of time. It's better for the patient. It's better for the hospital. It's better for the industry partners.
Yeah.
And just generally, I think it improves overall healthcare
Yeah.
in this category. So you're right in that if the market was growing 6%, which was a stat, I don't remember what year that was, but I know what you're talking about. Our customers were generally seeing anywhere between 12 to 18% growth.
Yeah. And that utilization of all the fixed costs, the physician's time, the OR suites, the lab time, the patient rooms, all of that, a lot of fixed assets in healthcare.
Yep.
Utilizing it more effectively can give a pretty quick ROI on the subscription fee. Very, very, so they get better healthcare. Their patients are happier, treated better. The docs are doing more acute and better reimbursed procedures.
Yep.
Wins already. Right. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It really does benefit everybody. And so I've been doing this, as I said earlier, about 25 years, and I've been very fortunate to be part of companies that have made really important impacts on the administrative side of healthcare to try to improve administration. This is really the first time where my company is impacting patients directly, and I got to tell you, I love it. I love it. I love the fact that we know that patients are receiving life saving care because of something our software did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly fulfilling. I'm sure to think about we're saving lives every day that you come to work. You're helping physicians get connected to patients where they can make a difference.
Every day. Yep.
Your company just had some in partnership with some researchers, a publication in Structural Heart, I think was the publication. And it was a little bit over my head, but it was talking about the benefits of diagnosing structural heart disease early to patient outcomes.
Yep.
And my takeaway was it's really important and beneficial to catch it early, but you proved that and published it. Maybe talk about that paper and how did that come about, and then maybe describe for the listener better what the results were than I just
did. Yeah, we did that paper with some of our KOLs.
I'll link to the actual paper in the show notes. So
okay, yeah. And basically what it identified was, well, first of all, there was a big trial that occurred And I believe Edwards may have sponsored the trial, or one of the large device companies sponsored the trial. Dr. Philippe Genero, I think, was the primary investigator on that. And that was a very lengthy trial. Ours really complemented that, and not that it needed validation, but it was a validating point in which our data proved and showed too that earlier intervention is key, meaning that if something is symptomatic or asymptomatic, in the past, I think people have typically looked for symptomatic, severe structural heart disease. And what these papers and what this research is showing is that asymptomatic, even asymptomatic moderate, is really important to identify and to get care earlier, right? So one of the things our platform does, and you're right, the company is Ignite. The platform that we use for this solution is called CardioCare. CardioCare has predictive analytics, predictive models in it that can predict the likelihood that if somebody was diagnosed as moderate, they're actually severe. But I think what's more important is we can predict that if someone is severe, the progression of that disease. And that's been very important. But what this new research shows is that early intervention is key, because if somebody has moderate, some form of structural heart, that person is just as susceptible to illness and death as somebody who has the severe. So it really has, I think, opened up the eyes and the opportunities to say we need to get care earlier than later.
Yeah. And the opportunity and the challenge is that catching structural heart disease when it is still asymptomatic,
Yep.
obviously is difficult because the patient is not experiencing symptoms. And so there needs to be data markers or things that your software can see in their physiological data or the echo data, I mean, just the data that comes out before it manifests to symptoms the patient feels.
That's right. That's right. And this is where data and technology come in, right? And this is where the clinicians, like our biggest evangelists, our biggest advocates are the clinicians, because they understand how this can help their practice and how this can help them deliver care, because these folks, these men and women, are doing this because they want to help patients.
Yeah. And when they get called in and the patient already has all of these symptoms, there just are more limited choices to what they can do. Yeah.
That's right. And so the reason I think this evangelism from our clinician population occurs, Vic, is because they understand that using this advanced analytic, advanced technology, algorithms, this high math is able to find these patients and these indicators more precisely than if they're just reading an echo, for example, by themselves. Or if somebody's reading an echo, what if there's a misread of the echo, right?
And it may not be the heart surgeon reading it. It could be a primary care doctor.
That's exactly. That's right. That's right. And so we're taking that human intervention out and applying artificial intelligence, not generative, but we're applying our AI to it in order to make a prediction of what that disease is and the state of that disease.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's talk about your use of AI and NLP and machine learning. There's all this buzz around generative AI.
Yep.
And it is exciting, but it's non-deterministic. So it is fraught with randomness, which is okay if you're generating a blog posting, but maybe not good in heart disease treatment.
Yep.
So how does Ignite use NLP, machine learning, AI? Do you have the ability to sort of see where these patient goes in the electronic medical record, and then be able to sort of have the end of the story as, so to feed the database? How do you think about using technology and machine learning AI to benefit Ignite in your patients?
Yeah, so we use all of that. We use NLP, we use machine learning, we use artificial intelligence. Because of some of the things you've just said about the just the use of that in the market and the literature in the media, people can get a, I don't know, maybe an uninformed view of what AI really is. And so we're very careful about how we describe it. We don't do, this is not chat GPT,
Right.
right?
It's not generative. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like
it's
making
not
up stuff that
generative.
it
That's
does.
exactly right. And so, and I think what makes our ability to identify these patients with the level of precision that we can, that is better than human detection, is because we have access to so much data, right? We've got this 360 view of the data. And because we're just focused on cardiovascular, our data is extremely deep.
Mhm.
So some of these data companies that are out there are an inch deep and a mile wide,
Right.
right? We are very, very deep, and we choose not to go too wide.
Right.
And it is the ability to use that breadth of data, that 360 view of a patient, and apply our technology to it, whether it's the natural language processing to review echocardiograms, whether it's the AI to create algorithms and to look at the entire patient situation, whether it's the machine learning to understand and train on what these models can do based on people that look like this, that have these characteristics, these clinical medical characteristics, and to start making predictions and be able to pull that out and to do that very, very fast. That is a very different situation than, again, relying on a physician to read a chart or to read, an
Right.
echo.
Yeah. And just to be clear, you said this earlier, but your technology stack, your solution is highlighting or maybe triaging patients that should be seen by the heart care team
Yep.
as soon as possible. You're
Yep.
not doing a diagnostic service.
100%. We are not doing
Highlighting
diagnostics.
them and raising up the most important patients to the top. And that's a very different service than trying to be predictive about something.
And that is, you're exactly right. And that is by design, and it is intentional by Ignite and by our team, because candidly, I don't want to go through the FDA process every time. We're a software company, we're a technology company.
Yeah.
And
And let the doctors do what they're
that's
trained to do.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're there to support the physicians in the decisions that they need to make. And we're able to do that by providing clinical information for them, to present that in a very efficient, immediate way so that they can determine the best course of action on that patient.
Yeah. Um, can you give me a little understanding of the typical patient journey? I mean, how are these patients missed today? They're just not referred over to the cardiac care team, or maybe they are, but they don't follow up. How do they get lost? And then, is there a common area that you're trying to close? They never come in from this area or something.
Yeah. So I mean, it can happen in a couple of ways. We talked earlier about somebody might misread an echocardiogram, for example, right?
Yeah.
Just a mistake. Somebody may identify somebody as moderate when in fact they're severe. And as we talked earlier, even if they're moderate, we still want to be able to see them.
Yeah.
Because if they're moderate, they could actually be severe. And so maybe they're diagnosed as moderate, but they should be severe. And the physician says, come back in 2 years. Well, unfortunately, in 2 years, that person will probably be dead. So that doesn't work.
Or
So
even
it might be that.
moved, or they're people. It's hard to follow up in 2 years. They don't.
Or so, yeah, exactly. Or somebody, they may be identified, they may be diagnosed, and the next step is, okay, we need you to schedule some time to come back, and that person doesn't do it. Whatever, they move on, and maybe they don't understand what the mortality rates are of somebody who has some form of severe structural heart disease, and they may not understand and appreciate that, and they go about their business thinking, I'll take care of it. I'll go back in 6 months or something like that. And that's when I talked earlier about, if somebody isn't seen, if there's not a follow-up to the heart program, or to the heart team within 90 days. We know, we have research that shows that person falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And we're trying to prevent
just
that.
To be clear, I think the mortality rate, meaning the percent of people that pass away within 2 years, is like 50% if you have structural heart disease and are not seen.
It's 50% in 2 years, it's 80% in 5 years.
Yeah. Wow. Scary.
And that's what I say. When I said earlier, I've come to believe that cardiovascular death, as a general statement, is a preventable one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm really part of the reason I wanted to do this spin-off podcast series around heart disease is, one, I have heart disease. Two, it's the largest killer of people in the US and globally. And three, as you're saying, I think it is largely preventable if we catch it early, which is the main problem now. But there's an opportunity to really make a huge impact on people's life by
Vic,
early any heart disease.
I think, Vic, it's if we catch it early and we intervene early.
Yeah.
If we get them in, we can activate those patients so that physician can start to put together a plan for that patient.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where this whole early, and what you were talking about was early TAVR, where that really comes in, is that whole idea.
Yeah.
Let's find them, let's get them in, and let's start to prepare the right type of plan and program for that person.
Because even though the mortality rates are quite scary, we have more and more varied treatments for heart disease than almost any other disease. We have a lot of resources to treat patients if we can get them in and get them seen and treated.
When you think about it's the number one killer in America. And I think people in the heart industry would be happy to concede that to cancer, if they could.
Right.
But it's the number one killer in America. The cost, not only to patients and their families and things like that, but the cost to our system, the cost to our society is huge. And if we can create, and I know the American Heart Association does certain things where they're really trying, obviously the whole genesis of that is to create awareness and education. But I think what we're talking about here is really about it's about identifying and engaging and activating, right? And it's that clinical component. And we have enough information to know that this is preventable. We can fix this. And Vic, we have stories. It's not the 85-year-old person that we're talking about here. We have stories of 26-year-olds going into the emergency room who, for the last couple of years were having some kind of loss of breath. I thought it was asthma.
Yeah.
Our system said, no, this individual has heart failure and he needs to be treated now, and actually was able to have a procedure done. We have, 50-year-old people. It's not just the elderly that are falling prey to this.
Yeah, definitely. So that maybe is a good point to talk about where Ignite's headed. So over, we're here in December. This will air probably right around the holidays. So we're about to start 2025. Where's Ignite headed, and what do you see for the future?
Yeah. I tell my team that we're really in the unsexy stage of our business, and that is execute, execute, execute. When we spun this business out, we knew that we needed to expand our technology, our data strategy, and we did that, right? So we spent several months right off the bat just building out the technology, validating in the market, validating with publications, research. So we've been published in all the major medical publications. And we have a situation where the business is growing very nicely. And as I tell the team, we're just going to stay focused. We're not going to chase shiny objects. Yeah. We know that what we're doing is working. It's having an impact. I believe this is, I believe that we have a lot we can do yet in terms of helping patients in this area. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So as I said, execute, execute, execute. We've got a plan, we've got a strategy, and we're just going to continue to advance that.
Yeah, well, exciting stuff. If people want to learn more, what's the best way for them to connect with you or Ignite, or if they're represent a health system, get involved? How do they approach it? Where should they?
Yeah, I would love to have them send me an email at Joel, Joel.Portice, Portice.
Great. I'll put this in the show notes. So
Okay.
send you an email directly.
Yep.
And then I know there's a website, is there places they can go on there and also learn a little bit? Maybe
There is.
go to their team or, their.
Yeah. There's a demo on there. I think it might be a little outdated, but there is a demo out there.
Yeah.
There's a contact us, right? So there's inquiries that we get every day. We get all the time.
Yeah.
So do that. But if again, feel free to reach out to me directly.
I'll put your email in, and then I'll also put the website so they can do some more research and check out the demo. Even if it's a little outdated, they can see the dashboard and see some stuff around it.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Okay. Anything we didn't cover that we should have?
No, I think again, for all those folks that are listening to this that are interested in cardiovascular, that are in the industry side or working on the hospital side, would love to figure out a way to connect with you. And for all those folks who are trying to solve problems using data and software, keep at it. Keep at it, man. There's a lot we can do. You talked about I was on the board, for example, of Apixio, which used AI back in the early days in order to help with MCC coding and HCC coding. And that was a company that was based in Silicon Valley, and I joined a friend of mine who's an investor, a person that I'd worked with in the past, put me on the board as an independent. The thing was doing 750,000 in revenue when I joined. 5 years later, it was at 65 million and growing. Just a great company with great people, solving really important problems. But again, they stayed focused, right? They had a good team, stayed focused. And
I don't know if you know, but Sean Desmachi, I can't say his name. I've pulled him into Gracia Health, one of my portfolio companies.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, I think
you said it well. Like to do any startup, but data certainly, it's really focusing on that one really critical idea that you're going to get right better than anyone else, and then build a team of people smarter than you around you to do it with you. Those two things are hard to accomplish, but really important in having success.
And you got to keep your eye above the grass too, to make sure you're not going off the cliff, right? So it's having the plan, it's having the vision, it's having the strategy, but it's also paying very, very close attention to it to make sure that if you need to pivot just a bit, it's okay to pivot, right? Yeah. You don't do a complete 180, on one day, but pivoting happens and it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, Edwards Lifesciences pivoted in one sense by spinning this out and took a risk, and it's going to be great for them and great for the whole industry. That's
right. And Edwards Lifesciences was a spin out, I believe. Spin out might not be the right word, but it spun out of Baxter. And I hope that Ignite has the same success they did when they spun. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Well, thanks for doing this, Joel. We'll come back to you once you're having that kind of success and taking that could be another show.
I like that. Thank you, Vic. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it. Have a good holidays.
Good to talk to you.